Okay, so today we're gonna be making an updated tier list from my previous one back before Fontaine was out. We have a bunch of new characters. I already placed them and I already moved like a few characters because Farina just basically changed the whole tier list. Like technically I can put most of these characters in A and S tier, but I'm just gonna keep it a little bit more realistic. And again, this is my take on it. You could disagree, you can agree with me, and just let me know what you guys think. And before I get started, I do want to play a bit more Star Rail because one, kind of hard for me to like do different Genshin stuff because I have so many characters to build still, so I don't really have the freedom to just make like meme builds, meme teams, and just play mess around. But in Star Rail, at least I can just do things like the Memory of Chaos, story even, like Penacony so far. Literally made me cry. It was so sad at the end. What else can I do? Simulated universe, pure fiction, just a bunch of stuff. But we are just gonna be going over this tier list. I'm not gonna be like going into too much detail with every character because there's a lot of characters. So I'm just gonna be giving like a brief reason why each character is here, or most characters, because I might skip through some, since they should be self-explanatory why they're here. Like Zhongli, Xiangling, Xingqiu, those characters, Bennett, those characters should be pretty obvious why they're at the top for me. But yeah, for Chiori, she's not out yet, but I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna put her at A tier. You can disagree with me. Maybe she belongs here, maybe even here, but for a character that we basically don't know too much about, I am just gonna put her as a solid A tier because she is gonna be a sub DPS from what we know so far, and they say her damage is gonna be pretty good. So let's get started with the top tier. I was thinking about just going here since there won't be too much to go over, but let's just go over with the best characters first. Kazuha, he should be pretty obvious. Grouping characters, same thing for Venti. Grouping characters together and swirl and just buffing pretty much any reaction or element is insanely good. Same thing for Venti, grouping enemies and swirling. The only reason why Sucrose is not here is because, like I said before, people have been saying, or people have said, I don't know if this is still a thing, but C6 Sucrose is equal to C0 Kazuha. And for me, it's so much easier to get a C0 Kazuha than a C6 Sucrose. Like, some of you probably do have a C6 Sucrose, but not a Kazuha. But still, for most of us, if Kazuha appears in the banner, we most likely do not have a C6 Sucrose. For me, I think my Sucrose is C4, C5, and I have pulled on her rate ups, and I've pretty much pulled on every patch ever since I started playing. So, yeah, still C4, 5. My Yunjin, actually, is still C0. So, getting 4 stars is not like ideal and just relying on C6 for them. Like if it happens, it happens. But Kazuha C0, same thing for Venti, is a lot more valuable than C6 Sucrose, mainly because it's easier to get. Nilu, I have mentioned this for a few characters before in my other tier list. Nilu is a very niche character where she's pretty much only really good for Bloom teams, but she is insanely good at it. Like you put Nilu with Nahida and Denjo Traveler, or even Kale, but I do like Denjo Traveler a lot better, which is why she's in the top tier. Put her with this team, basically just these four, and you're gonna be doing a lot of damage, especially if you have some constellations for Nilu. You're gonna be doing a lot of damage, and especially if there's a bunch of enemies, you're, they're just gonna die. They're actually just gonna die. If you have Dendro Traveler, your damage, I believe, gets stronger because of the Hydro. I don't know what to call it. I don't know what her burst is called. Okay, yeah, Hydro. If you use Hydro on her lamp, Dendro Traveler's lamp, AoE increase and the AoE of the attacks are increased, which is insane. And with Nahida, you're gonna be getting a lot of bloom cores in the ground. And with Nilu, those bloom cores are gonna do so much damage. Kokomi, insane healer. Don't really have to talk too much about her. This is mainly for just Dendro Traveler because all the other travelers are, I wouldn't say bad, but not as good as Dendro. Mona, Bennett, I consider these two to pretty much be the same character. The main difference being Mona can't heal. So, yeah, that's the only main difference when I see them. I think Mona is basically a Hydro Bennett that can't heal. Xingqiu Yelan, they're pretty much the same character, let's be honest here. I mean, look at their styles. They look very similar, but they also do very similar things. Both do Hydro application, they both do sub DPS roles. Yelan can do main DPS roles, but mainly for Hydro application and sub DPS damage, they both pretty much do the same thing. Xingqiu, I believe, is a bit more defensive, but there are some cases where Xingqiu is better than Yelan, but sometimes you can just have both. Zhongli, we don't have to talk about him. You just press his shield and you won't die. You literally won't die. Zhongling, she's just been a really good character ever since the game came out. So much damage from her burst. Ayaka? Okay. People say that she's boring to play because she just kills everything. That's how you know the character's good. If you're bored because they kill everything too fast, you press burst, they're dead. So that's immediately a good character. I still don't know why that's a problem. On why like she kills too fast. I consider that to be a really good thing. But I guess for some people it's just boring. Raiden Shogun, don't really have to talk too much about her as well. Really good electro damage. Probably the best electro DPS. Who else is here? Yeah, the best electro DPS. A lot of damage used in most teams actually. You can pretty much just put Raiden in a lot of teams. Shinobu, really good electro application, really solid healing. Alhaitham, really good Dendro DPS. We don't really have too many Dendro DPS. We have Nahida, but not as like a main DPS role. We have Tainari, but Alhaitham is a bit better. So yeah, Alhaitham really strong DPS, and honestly, I wish I have him because I do have his weapon. Miko, she's a really solid character, really easy to use. Too bad mine is like pretty bad actually. My build is pretty bad, no artifact luck for me, but really easy to use. You can only just like level up her skill and get away with that. And her rotations, people say it takes a bit long, but it's just you tap skill 3 times and then she's off for the field for a while. It's like watching a burst animation. So yeah, really strong character. The skill does not take as long as people think, and really solid DPS, sub DPS. Unless you have constellations, then main DPS. Official. This is pretty much the free-to-play alternative to these two, basically. Mainly Miko because they're both sub DPS. So you don't have Miko, official. Raiden, if you're using her as a sub DPS and you don't have her, then official. Really solid character. But unfortunately, I have both of these. So sorry, official, you're gonna have to wait before I build you. Kirara, she shields. Her shield is pretty strong. Her Dendro application's not too bad. So pretty solid top tier in my opinion. You can disagree with me here because she is, like, honestly, pretty questionable why she's here. Because Diona's here too. And well, she shields, she can heal. Her cryo application is lacking. I don't think it's like that bad, but it's not the best. But Kirara could be here. I'm just putting her here mainly because I do like her shield. It's pretty strong. Really easy to build, obviously, and she's Dendro. Dendro's just really strong. Kuching. I consider Kuching to be a pretty strong DPS, especially now. Like, we have Chevre, so maybe Overload Kuching could be possible. Who knows? But she's a really strong DPS. We've seen like little shorts of her and her damage potential. Really strong, especially for just being a standard banner. Really strong, especially with the Dendro element, which pretty much brought her up here, in my opinion. Shenhe, similar case with Nilou. Niche use, literally only mainly used for cryo support. But just like Nilou, she's good at it. And that's all that matters. You pair these two together, and she will literally just one burst everything. You pair Ganyu here, then Ganyu will be most likely 1 to 2 shotting everything. Maybe 3, depending on how many like enemies are there and how many like hit points they have. Hu Tao, she just does damage. Hu Tao, Neuvillette, and Navia, those 3 DPS characters are the main reasons why I was able to like consistently 36 star the Abyss now. Because I had Neuvillette, but no like other character that can like keep up with the Abyss. Nilou would have worked, but it's mainly single enemies, which kind of sucks because Nilou is mainly good for like a bunch of enemies. So Hu Tao, Neuvillette, Navia, those 3 are here because these 3 are really good DPS characters. They're really strong, especially Neuvillette. He's really strong, and he can be a team on his own. Navia, really strong. In the trial, you can easily hit over 100k, and that's just a trial character. My current build, I believe I can consistently hit around 280 to 300k damage, and that's a lot of damage with max stacks. I think this involves Farina too. If I have the Farina buff, then 280 to 300k. Other than that, like not too much of a difference. Hu Tao, she's just strong. She's really strong. We've seen a lot of Hu Tao clips by now. She does a lot of damage. Sure, her teams are pretty limited. Like, her team is literally right here with Zhongli, but she's really strong. Farina, honestly, she should pretty much just be on a tier on her own. She does a lot of damage. If you want to use her as a healer for some reason, her healing's really good. And with her burst and skill, she pretty much just buffs the entire game. Any DPS will be really strong with Farina because of her fanfare buff. Really strong. Linny, we all saw what happened when Linny came out. He does a lot of damage, especially in Mono Pyro. He has a lot of buffs for himself, especially if you have his weapon. That's even more buffs. Yeah, look at this, 66 at level 90 for crit damage, which is pretty good. For every party member with a different elemental type. Okay, that one doesn't matter. When the wielder has 1, 2, 3 more gimmick stacks, which is, I believe, characters with same element, right? Yeah, for every party member with the same element type as the wielder, including the wielder, gain a gimmick stack. When the wielder has 1, 2, or 3 more gimmick, the attack will be increased by this much. And this is just like R1. We go down here, R5, 96%. That is so much damage. Damage dealt by charge attacks increased by 32%. That is so much damage. That is actually a lot of damage. And this is just a single weapon too. Really easy to like have all these stacks for, even with just one character, which is themselves, 32. If you have another character for like resonance or something, 64. That's for R5. But even R1, 16% and 32. That's really solid. Even without that weapon, he is really good because there are a lot of good DPS bows out there. You have Yelan's bow, Tainari's bow if you have it. But there are a good amount of options for him if you don't have his weapon. Child, he's just been consistently good. A lot of damage. But the main downside is I was considering putting him over here. But I guess managing his skill cooldown is not too bad. That's like the main issue with him. So that's pretty much it for top tier. Now we're just gonna go to like the really good characters, but not like the best, in my opinion. Yoimiya, really solid pyro DPS, but to me, she's very limited because of her skill. Like without her skill active, which is like, I don't know, I don't know how long it's active for, but it's active enough to where you can kill whatever you're fighting. But if not, then you're gonna have to go through another whole rotation. And that can cost you time, especially in the Abyss. But Yoimiya, really solid DPS character. I do wish her skill timer was like a bit longer because someone like Hutao, whose like skill timer is not as long, she does arguably a lot more damage. Her cooldown, not too bad because of her rotations, and she can pretty much just sometimes just 2 to 3 charge attack enemies. And with Shenyun, Plunge Hutao, honestly, pretty good. Plunge Hutao is really good, really fun to play. And in my opinion, I think Yoimiya is not as good as Linny and Hutao. Linny because, well, he has a lot of buffs for himself. And that's just on himself. He buffs himself, and his weapon also buffs him. But that's a lot of buffs for just one character. Yoimiya doesn't really have that too much, but she is still a really good character, and I can put her here. She's pretty much like borderline. Aya, for the best like starter character, he's pretty good. He's still being used today. His cryo application's pretty good. It's like it's kind of like a better Barbara. Yeah, because Barbara's Hydro Ring not that good, but Kaya's Cryo Ring is honestly pretty good. Pretty solid, does good damage, and obviously the best like starter character. Eula, we don't have to talk too much about her. She just does damage. She does a lot of damage. So many Eula clips out there showing her hit like in the millions, sometimes even capping out on damage. So, yeah, she just does damage. The only reason why she's not here is because her teams are pretty limited. And, well, it can be pretty hard to actually hit that big damage range. So that's why she's here. There are more like consistent options up here in the S tier. For Xiao and Wander, for me personally, I don't really like Animo DPS characters, mainly because they don't have like their own reaction. Like sure they have Swirl, but like Xiao mainly good with mono Animo, especially now with Shenyun, C6 Farazan, and probably like Bennett for healing and more attack. Same thing for Wander. C6 Farazan. Um, I don't know any Wander teams. Hold on. Okay, these are a few examples of his teams, but like they say over here, for his personal damage, you mainly have to use like animo characters. So Farazan, Bennett, Jean. This makes a lot of sense. I don't know why I forgot about Jean. But Electro Charge, this is mainly for reactions for these two, so he's just swirling it. Same thing for here and here too. He's basically just swirling it and that's his damage. And he's reliant on those swirls. So there are just other characters out there that can pretty much just do their reactions themselves. Swirling can go off field. And yeah, a good example of this would actually be Kazuha because he does swirling and he buffs the team. So I think like animal characters are mainly best when they're in a more sub DPS support role rather than main DPS. You can argue with me on this, but that's just what I think. Ganyu, similar case with Ayaka. Charge attack gameplay. She can do a 1, 2, 3 charge attack everyone, and they'll just kinda die. And because of that, people find her boring to play because of her one gameplay, and two, she kills too fast. I still don't know why killing too fast is a problem. I thought that was the whole point. But of course, people do have different playstyles. But eventually, you're just gonna be like killing everything really fast. Ayato, well, he's pretty solid. He's really good. But Nuvalet, Nuvalet just straight up outshines him in many ways. Yeah, many ways. Farina can arguably do like more damage, not AoE damage, but like just number wise, like big numbers, similar to Eula. Farina can easily hit like 40, 50k ish with the right build. Ayato, he's more AoE, and if he boosts his attack speed, of course he'll be better. But still, there are just better Hydro options out there. Even Yelan, Kave, he's a good character. He, especially in Dendro teams, he can pop his own cores, so that's already very valuable to have. Because for Nilu, one of the main downsides is that you kind of have to wait for the cores to blow up, and with Kave, you can pretty much just blow them up on like command basically. Tainari, similar to Alhaitham, really good DPS. I think Alhaitham just a bit better. We already talked about Sucrose. I know people have been saying that his DPS is mid and like there are just better options out there. Raiden Shogun and even Kuching. But for me, you don't have to like kill an enemy in like 3 seconds, like 3 to 5 seconds, for the character to be considered good. So he does his damage. He does really good damage. The main problem is interruption, from what I've seen. What shielders are for. So yeah, the main reason why he's here and not here is mainly because of better options. Miko, Raiden, Kuching even, at least for me. Fischl. as a sub DPS. Diluc, because of Shanyun and Farina, he is up here now. Before, I think I put him over here in B tier, but because of Shanyun buffing plunging, and same thing for Gaming, he is surprisingly really good. So these three, all really solid. Shanyun is only here and not in top tier because there are not that many characters who like benefit from plunging over just normal attack, charge attack. So that's why she's here. Very limited use. And you can use her as a healer, sure. But for her main purpose, which is buffing plunge, well, she's really good at it. But there's not that many options for her. So Diluc, Gaming, pretty much same thing. They are really good, especially now with plunge buffs. So all three in a solid A tier. Chevrez, she is really good. In Overload, especially, because that's like her only team comp. Niche character, but really good at it. Pair her with Raiden, Bennett, who's another character? I guess like Fischl. She'll be a really good character. You'll do a lot more damage for your main DPS. And she just does her job really well. Her rotation is not that bad because all you're doing is pretty much just holding the skill, shooting, get your overcharge ball, and that's pretty much it. Lynette, people can say that she's like B, maybe even C tier, but I do like how she is. Her skill is solid. C6 Lynette, pretty good DPS. Her burst, really good swirling actually. And her skill, really surprisingly pretty strong. Similar to Yelan's, but Yelan's is of course better. But her swirling is pretty good. She buffs the team as well if you have different elements. But even if with just two elements, she will still be a really strong character to have. Especially if you don't have other swirling characters like Venti, Kazuha. You'll for sure have Sucrose. I'll be kind of surprised if you don't. But Lynette's a good option. Really good option. Noelle, she basically came from here to up here because of Farina. I wouldn't put her as a top tier, but she's really strong now because of Farina. Yao Yao and Baiju, pretty much in the same situation. Good healers, and Yao Yao better Dendro application. I guess Baiju and Jean are more similar because, well, they were both like lower in my opinion, but because of Farina, since they heal the whole team, they're a lot more valuable. Layla, really solid shielder, probably one of the strongest shields in the game. And Chiori, I'm just gonna say that she's gonna be a solid character. And I hope she does stay in the A tier at least. But if not, then it doesn't matter. I'm gonna use her anyway. For B and C tier, these characters are mainly just they're usable in certain situations, but there are just better options. So like Yanfei, better DPS. If you want Tank Fei, again, there are better shielders out there. But at least Tank Fei is easier to build. The problem is you need C4. Beto, there are just better options. Like Miko, Fischl, as a main DPS, Shogun, Kuching even. And not that many people use her in teams, which is actually pretty surprising. Because I thought that she was actually pretty good when first playing. But, well, after seeing more, she isn't really used as much as I thought. Kale, I think Denjo Traveler's just a lot better. Azo, same situation with Wanderer and Xiao. I don't really like Animo DPS too much because I feel like they're very limited in their teams. Rosaria, very niche, pretty good, but there are just better options. Gujo Sara or Sarah, I don't know how to say it. I don't know which one it is, but Gujo. We have Shogun, Vishal, but she is good for buffing Electro, mainly for Raiden. But that's pretty much it, especially if you have her at C6 and Raiden. Then she'll do really good, but you won't really see her too much outside of Electro teams. Changyun, again, better cryo options. Ningguang, better Geo options. Lee, better pyro options, but she's still pretty solid DPS, just a bit on the slower side. Barbara, almost non-existent hydro application, but pretty solid healing, really good healing. Albedo, well, mainly because like more characters, especially Geo teams, are gonna be using him. He went from here to up here for me. Like Noel can use him, Chiori might need him, Navia can use him. Um, I think that's pretty much all the Geo characters. Zhongli, if you have him as a DPS with constellations, he can use him. Even Albedo himself, pretty solid DPS, but it's just there are just better options out there for support wise at least, and sub DPS roles. Charlotte, I wish she was better. Her healing is solid. I wish her burst lasted a little longer. Her skill holding the camera takes a while. It actually takes a while. But you can also use her as a DPS because she does have a good amount of attack buffs for herself since her healing is based off her attack. Goro, he's just literally only used in Geo teams. I don't really know any other teams that use Goro aside from Geo teams. Yunjin, very limited use, but you can use her for like Yoimiya, Ayato because of their normal attack boost if you have constellations and all that stuff. Remine, I just like to call him a 4-star Eula. His damage is solid, but I haven't really seen too much of him, and there are just better DPSs out there. Ito, again, better DPSs out there. Even Noelle, in my opinion, I think she's better now than Ito. D tier, we don't really have to talk too much about them. Oh, I don't think I talked about Lisa, but good Electro, but again, very limited use. She's a solid character, but very limited use because Vishal exists. And now for C tier, these characters are just like very limited under use, or they're just better options in general. Like Chi Chi, there's a lot of healers in this game. Just pick one. Any of them is better. Amber, I wish you were a lot better. When I first started playing Genshin, I loved Amber. And I wish she was insanely good. But unfortunately, she's not, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is. Dory, like who even uses Dory? What does Dory even do? She's a support character. Okay, I did not know that. Energy recharge, a low particle generation, Favonia's Greatsword Noblesse. Um, support build, pure. She's a healer. Oh my gosh, she's a healer. Okay, I guess I can see it now. But she's a healer. There are way better healers out there. Even just using Barbara would be a big upgrade to Dory. Mika, I know he can heal a bit, but he's mainly just used for physical support, which is basically non-existent. Literally only Eula, and I guess Fremine does physical damage, like good physical damage. So, and that's only for C6 also. if you have C6 Mika, which I do, put her with Eula, or put him with Eula, and you'll be doing a good bit more damage. That's pretty much it. I don't see people using her for pretty much obvious reasons. Please, Gaming, especially with Gaming now, like better Pyro DPS. If she's a DPS, I think she's a DPS. Yeah, I think she's a DPS. Oh my gosh, her ranking is non-existent. DC, DC. I guess she can play as all of them. Physical main DPS, burst sub DPS, shield support. There's too much going on. There really is too much going on for her to be a more consistent character. Yeah. I'm pretty sure if you build her properly, she'll be good. Like, for pretty much all characters. But again, better options. Klee, Diluc, Gaming, Hu Tao, Yoimiya. Better options. Sayu. Who uses Sayu? What is she even good for? Diha. There have just been a lot of complaints on how Dia is. And her kit being a bit iffy, pretty bad, pretty mid. And because of that, there are just better options. Candace, I don't really know anyone who uses Candace. Don't really know anyone who uses Razor. And for these two, better options up here. Oma, I've only really seen him in Burgeon. And Burgeon is like a not common reaction that you would use. So, yeah, he's here. Barzon, very limited for her use. Literally only for Animo. And, like, if you don't have her at C6, then using Bennett would be better for buffing. Aloy, I don't have to talk about her, right? I'm pretty sure I don't have to talk about her. But for any Aloy mains, like, why and how? How do you still do this with all these characters up here? But anyways, this will be my tier list for, I guess, 4.4, since Chiori's not out. So 4.4, me hoping Chiori will be at least A tier. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree, disagree with some things, and yeah, be harsh. I want you guys to be harsh with my tier list because, well, I want to know the truth. What you guys think, why you guys think that, and just pretty much just say whatever you want.